Hi, I'm JJ Conway, and I help hardworking women and a few good men build financial confidence and take ownership of their financial future. I'm cheering you on with education on financial literacy, smart investments, and passive income streams. Welcome to Ladies of Wealth.
If you have a question, drop it in the comments, whichever side of the screen your comments are on, drop it in the comments, or you can use the anonymous form at askjjc.com. It takes you to a Google form, and that way you can ask your questions or you can drop them in the chat. Your time is your most precious resource. And so whether you're listening to me live or listening to the recording, I am honored and humbled that you chose to spend your time with me. Some of you will listen to this as part of the Ladies of Wealth podcast after we're done recording live. I encourage you to join us live every Thursday night for another great lesson on wealth building, real estate investing. Right now, we're in the series on Think and Grow Rich, okay? Okay, let's get into the actual lesson tonight. Our mentality keeps this running log of our transgressions and shortcomings. And one of the reasons that I recommend that people who are especially going through this course, the self-image course, the authentic abundance course, that you keep a success timeline, okay, of all the accomplishments that you have done. And yes, we give all honor and glory to the Lord, but keep a timeline so that when life gets you down, you can open up your timeline when you have the right notebook with you, and you can say, no, you know what, I feel down now. I'm not sure I can do this now, but I didn't know I could do that either, and it happened. I didn't know I could do that either, but the Lord sent the right resources at the right time. I didn't know I was going to be able to pull this off, but somehow the money found its way to my hand. Okay. And so I went down that path of all of the shortcomings and transgressions until the Lord filled my heart with his love for real. Because no matter what I did, it was never good enough to quiet that inner voice. And some of you have been working a long time and you haven't been able to quiet that inner voice. What you're learning today will help you quiet that inner voice as you transmute the energy, as you put more energy and more emotion into the things you want out of life. It'll diminish the emotion of the things that you don't. So before we go on, let's touch back on this idea of how do we find our purpose? What are we interested in? Okay. We develop our gifts and talents. We get this passion, we get passion filled, and it starts to flow through us. And passion is an energy, and energy is an emotion, and passion is an emotion, and emotion is energy in motion. And you begin to carry out that, right? When it comes as you see in this chapter. So please read the chapter, right? It's only 7.5 pages, okay? But to kind of put the cookies on the bottom shelf, I want to share the teachings of Dr. Fleet in its simplest form, okay? This comes from Dr. Thurman Fleet, okay? And I started off trying to draw this a little bit last time. Hopefully I did an okay job. He was out of San Antonio, Texas. He's since passed on, all right? He gets this idea of concept therapy, he says, from God. And it happens, I think it's like 1932 or something, right? He goes publicly and starts teaching it in 1937, which is when this book comes out. So when this book comes out, okay, so again, it's just kind of how the perfect timing. God just put this together. You've got Dr. Thurman Fleet introducing the world of concept therapy. You got Napoleon Hill introducing Think and Grow Rich. And this is at a time in America where we were going through one of the worst financial times in history. And so all this teaching here comes from concept therapy. And here's the thing. Dr. Fleet was a chiropractor. Like the class we're going to do at the beginning of the year, we're going to go through psychocybernetics, Maxwell Maltz. He was a plastic surgeon. Neither one of these dudes ever intended for their work to really be used for the manifestation of wealth or business. It was truly for health, but it worked. Okay. They wanted people to understand how the mind works so that they could heal themselves. Again, Thurman Fleet was a chiropractor involved in the healing arts. And so this teaching comes from him. It's been adapted over time by a lot of others who've taken the work, added to it, and it's kind of grown and expanded. But basically, you know what, rather than just do this one, because I have the rest of the lesson that I did this on, I'm just going to draw a new one, okay? So basically, he drew a big circle, Woo. And he said, let that represent your mind. And then he drew a stick body and arms, and that's why they call it the stick man. Okay, so some of you have seen this before, but it's good at repeating. He said, let that represent your body. Okay, and it wasn't that he was a bad artist, right? But the purpose of the image being this way is he's saying everything is really in our mind. Everything is mind. It's mind. Okay, and so most people, when we get an image of mind, we're thinking of an image of the brain, and we think our brain inside this hard shell is our mind. It's really not. The brain is the organ. The brain is the organ, and it's the chemical and electric switching station. That's the brain. The mind is really the activity that's found in every cell of your being. It's the expression of thoughts. So this is why you can be thinking about something like, let's say, embarrassing, right? And your cheeks turn red. The thought is expressed through your mind. Your mind isn't just your brain. The mind is the activity that takes place in communication and causes your internal vibrations to change and alter in response to what you're thinking. So the mind is that vibrational energy and frequency that you're in. It is the expression of those thoughts that you hold. And so you have the stickman. And he says, let's just say, and I'm sure science is going to eventually discover that there's more, but he said in 1937, let's just say there's two parts to the mind, okay? So again, we're putting the cookies on the bottom shelf here, all right? I know there's a lot of different parts to the mind, but that's what he's saying today, all right? Look, let's just say there's two parts to the mind, and let's say that this top part would be our conscious mind, and the bottom part is going to be our subconscious. Now, I'm going to call it subconscious today. I like the way Dr. Shealy does with the non-conscious or other than conscious mind. Okay, I think that's good, but I haven't gotten used to saying that yet. So if you hear me alternate in between terms, I'm talking about the subconscious. We got our conscious mind and we got our subconscious mind. Okay. They are two very different parts, and we did talk about this in another lesson. Okay, so I'm going to flash this really quick. It's just going to do a drive-by. So if you were on that lesson, you know where I'm going with this. Woo! Okay, all right. So we talked about this in one of our other lessons. If you didn't see that lesson, you need to get in the course so you can get that lesson because it's very powerful. Okay, so this top is our thinking mind. This is our thinking, and in our conscious mind, we can think, right? And now look. Just because we can think doesn't mean we do think. Okay. And I'm not saying that to be cute, right? I say that because what most people call thinking is actually just mental activity. What most people are really doing, they are thinking yesterday's thoughts. They are overhearing other people's opinions and just regurgitating them. And that's not really thinking. Okay. What I'm talking about today is creative thought. Thinking, creating, imagining, being able to think beyond your current conditions and circumstances into something new and something creative and something desirable and something elevated. In your conscious mind, you can think, and it's where your awareness lies. Your subconscious mind really is your feeling mind. It's your feeling mind. It's your emotional mind. Okay, so I'm going to write think. I'm going to write think. Oh, no, you can't see that blue very well. All right, let's try a different color again. I'm going to write think. And I'm going to write feel. Okay? I'm going to write think and feel. All right? So it's your feeling mind, your emotional mind. And in your subconscious mind, this is where your self-image is. This is where your self-esteem lies. And there's a big difference between your self-image and your self-esteem, okay? Your self-image is the image you see of yourself into the world, how you see yourself interacting with your world, what your self-belief is of you. Your self-esteem is the value, your perception of your worthiness, okay? How I value me is self-esteem. Those are two separate things, okay? The culmination of all of that together is what we call our self-belief. And our self-belief is it creates what we call a belief system. And oftentimes our capital B, capital S belief system is just that. It's BS, belief system. very well can be BS. Okay. Now look, you have you have you have the ability to think negatively or positively. You can make that choice in your conscious mind. We have been given what's called free will. You get to choose whatever it is that you want to choose. You can listen to whatever you want. And as a matter of fact, we gain access through the outside world through these little antennae. Okay. And I'm going to try to draw them here. You know, I tried to draw them another time I was teaching this, and they look like devil horns. So we don't want to pretend, we don't want to confuse the issue here. Okay. But these represent our five senses. Okay. We have the ability to, maybe I should do more than just two, but I don't have enough room and time as I'm talking to do that. So we have these two that I'm drawing here, but really there's five. I could do five for the five senses. Okay. Our ability to see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. We gather information from our outside world using our physical senses, and then we can think and form an opinion. Now, oftentimes when we form an opinion and we begin to think about something, if that thought is not in harmony with what our our belief system is, then guess what we do? We reject the idea. Now we'll talk ourselves right out of it that quick because it doesn't meet our belief system. And what we normally do, y'all, is we look out over all the results we've created. And let's say the person who here is thinking is like kind of like I was about having $1 million a year business, and the results are they're producing a $20,000 a year business. Actually, for many people right now in today's economy, if you're producing a $20,000 a year business on your pathway to being able to quit your day job, you're actually doing pretty well, and we can help you take that all the way to you being a full-time entrepreneur. All right. But let's say they got a $20,000 a year business. All right. They're down here at 20,000. And the person will have the thought, oh, I could have $1 million a year. And they will look at the outside world and they will come to the logical conclusion based on their belief system that they are never going to be able to do that. And therefore they reject the idea that quick. Most people's ideas and full potential are dead on arrival. They never even had a chance to get the life breathed into those dreams. And so it's important for us to understand that any idea we have in our conscious mind, we can impregnate this idea into our subconscious mind over and over and over and over and over again through the process of repetition. That's why in the 6 steps of translating desire into physical abundance, he says, read it twice a day, read it out loud. And that process of doing that, of repeating it over and over and impregnating that idea into the subconscious feeling mind, that's what autosuggestion is. So yes, hypnosis is a form of autosuggestion, but please don't let that scare you from implementing this technique in your life. Now, the most important thing, well, not most important thing, but an important thing, because everything's the most important thing, right? The important thing for us to understand right now is that your subconscious mind doesn't have any ability to reject the idea. See, up here, when you have the idea for the $1 million, well, you can begin to reason because you're thinking. You can begin to reason all the reasons why it won't work. And you can begin to reason why it could work, but you could have this $1 million idea and you can go out and see, and you can hear and smell and taste and touch and experience and meet people to gather new ideas and new belief systems about this idea. You can work with people to do that. You can work with this idea in your conscious thinking mind. You can reject it, but you could work with it. But once it reaches your subconscious mind, that's it. It becomes fixed. Once it becomes fixed, you have no ability to reject the idea. As a matter of fact, your subconscious mind believes anything that's impregnated into it. It believes it as it was the gospel truth. It truly is your belief system. Now, if you think about this, okay, think about this with me. Don't leave me yet. Think about this with me. There was a time in your life where you really didn't have conscious awareness. You didn't even have, this wasn't fully developed yet. You didn't have the ability to reason. And so when you were brought onto the scene, your mom and dad created you, and here you come. You come onto the scene, you have really no conscious awareness. You have no ability to think for yourself. You have no ability to reason whether this idea is right or whether that idea is wrong. All the thoughts, all the ideas, all the images that you are exposed to go right into your subconscious mind, and you accept them. This is why it's so important to pour into our children before they reach the age of reason, which is about 12 to 13 years, right? This is why a 5-year-old believes in Santa Claus. You tell a 5-year-old there's a big old fat jolly elf who lives at the North Pole who has flying reindeer and a bunch of elves who make toys for all the good boys and girls, and he flies all over the world in one day, and they believe it. They accept it. They also believe there's an Easter bunny. Now, many children believe there's an Easter bunny. I grew up believing that if I put a boot outside my door, I would wake up December 6th and Kris Kringle would have filled it with candy and toys. And if he didn't, we'd go around the house looking for our gift. You know, the first year we lived in Germany, someone clued us in on that, clued in my parents about that. And so maybe the second year too. I don't remember for how long, but I'll never forget the year that the candy didn't come. That boot was empty. So we go downstairs, looking behind the couch, and if it wasn't there, we look behind the curtains, and if it wasn't there, we look under the table, and if it wasn't there, we look in the kitchen, and we would never stop searching. It never even would occur to us to stop searching for it because our belief system told us there was a Kris Kringle and a tooth fairy and an Easter bunny, and belief drives behavior, and we fully expect it. And then, I don't know about y'all, but we're almost devastated when we begin to gain personal responsibility for what we think and our ability to reason, and we begin to gain conscious awareness, and all of a sudden we realize, there's no Santa Claus. And I'm going to suggest to you that just like this idea of Santa Claus that was programmed, it was programmed in your little mind. If you are at all like me, you were probably born into a programming where you were told to clean your plate because there were starving kids in Africa. You were told you can't have that because we just don't have the money. Maybe were told money doesn't grow on trees. Maybe you were told good things come to those who wait. If you're going to get anywhere in life, you got to work really hard. You got to do honest work. You'll never get ahead. You're never going to get ahead unless you have an education. And yet, all of these things that you were programmed to believe, you'll never be able to become rich. You'll never be rich as you're a high school dropout. You'll never be rich. You got a learning disability. You'll never be rich. Your life is ruined. You might, this is what they told me. And it's interesting. My mom made this really nice book of my mom made this really nice book of my upbringing. And she had in the book, my progress reports from 3rd grade all the way up through junior high or something like that. But what she didn't have in there was kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade. There was a time where she was cleaning out her files and she said, "Here, this is yours." And she gave it to me, and it's over here. And I'm not going to get up to go get it because then I'm going to wake up the little one. Okay. But in that is the people who identified that I was slow. They called it slow back then, as in you're not important enough for us to go get tested to see if you have an actual real learning disability, but we've determined you're not going to be anything out of life. And so, and in there is the teacher saying, if I work really hard, one day I might be able to be a good janitor or a cashier one day. I didn't have all these nice the 3rd grade one, the 4th grade one, they weren't so nice, but at least they weren't saying I was slow. I was a bit of a behavior problem, apparently, but I didn't have the ones with the good grades. I didn't have the ones where the teachers were saying I'm bright. I just wasn't applying myself. I didn't have the ones where the teachers say I was bright and I work hard. I had the ones here that said I was never going to be nothing. And some of you may just have a subset. And it's told you you're never going to be anything for the rest of your life. You're just not going to be able to be anything. And the same people that programmed you to believe in the Easter Bunny and programmed you to believe in Santa Claus have programmed you with a whole lot of beliefs about money, about how much money you can make, about how much you're worth, about how much money there is in a particular industry. You were programmed before the age of reason, before you completed this full picture of consciousness, before this consciousness was fully developed and you began to be able to really think, before you even understood how to think, you were programmed ideas about money and your self-worth. And for most people, the ideas that we were programmed around money was around not having enough money. Most of us were not programmed with prosperity consciousness. We were programmed with poverty consciousness. And that idea becomes fixed. And so later in life, when we get into a program or we attend a seminar or we take a class like this, or we read a book and somebody says, you can do, be, and have anything you want, and we get motivated for a minute. But if this idea that we have that comes in is larger than what our current belief system says, oh, you never have enough money, or what our current results are, look around at my life, we immediately reject the idea. Even though it's something we want to do, even though we want to bring it forward, even though we feel like God had put it on our hearts, we reject it. That'll never work. You know how long that's going to take? You know how long? Oh my goodness. Do you know how long it's going to take me to go back to school? Do you know how old I will be? And it's funny when people say this, I'm like, well, how old would you be if you didn't? You know, you're working with somebody who's 40, right? And they got to go back to school for about 3 years. They're like, yeah, you know how old I would be if I did that? And I'm like, well, yeah, let me think. It's not rocket science, but I think you would be 43, right? But how old would you be if you don't go back to school? You're gonna be 43, God willing, either way. So you might as well go back to school and be what you want to be, do what you want to do, have what you want to have. Now, in addition to our ability to gather information from our outside world, our ability to see, hear, taste, and touch, these are that's what these are supposed to be, um, we've been gifted. I'm sorry, I'm still thinking about when I tried to do this in church and it looked like devil horns. we we've been gifted with intellectual faculties. Okay, so we've been gifted with imagination, perception, reason, and memory. Yeah, and memory. And we can use these faculties to enhance the thoughts we have, to elevate the vibrational frequency of that thought. And the brain does not distinguish between what really happened or something vividly imagined. Okay, we talked about imagination in an earlier lesson. So now hear me out. Don't drop off yet. Okay, and we know this works in advance. We know this works. We know this works in our daily lives, because especially if you're in the ministry, every time Sister So-and-so talk about Jesus come to her bedroom when she was praying at midnight, you automatically think to yourself, did she forget to take her medicine? So you and I both know as humans, we are really, really good at using these faculties to change the meaning of events or change the memory of what really happened. All I'm asking you to do is to consider harnessing that power for good. If God didn't want us to use the mind's ability to do this, I don't think he would have created us with the mental capacity to do so. See, the devil doesn't create, he corrupts. And somewhere down the line, the enemy corrupted this God-given gift and then made us feel like it's ungodly to use the very gift God created in us to help us have an abundant life. This is a gift God created to help you have an abundant life. It's a God-given gift to be able to take an idea and use our imagination and imagine what it would be like. What would my life be like if I had an extra $1 million? What would it be like to have an extra $1 million a year salary? Where would I go? How would I travel? Who would I travel with? Who would I bless when I get there? What kind of car would I have? Who would I tithe to? Who would I tithe into? What kind of impact could I have in the world? Who could I help? Who could I serve? Who could I bless? Who could I elevate? And so we can imagine, we can actually go to that place. And every time we do that, this part of our mind, the subconscious, cannot tell the difference between what is a real experience and what is an imagined experience. In other words, your subconscious mind can take that mental trip and actually build the memory emotions of a future experience and store them just as real as you have stored the energy emotions of the memory emotions of past experiences. I want you to think about that for a moment, all right? You have the ability to think about what it is you want to be or do or have, and you can actually build a memory emotion in the future of you actually having it in your hand. And if you focus on that, which is actually using the principles of autosuggestion, right? You anchor it into your subconscious mind when you say it to yourself over and over again. And your subconscious mind will accept that idea as though it were real if you charge it with enough emotion. That's why it has to be definite. That's why it has to be detailed. And it will begin to produce in you memory emotions of an unlived, imagined experience. And you will ultimately move your body into a vibrational frequency that is consistent with that memory emotion of what it is you want out of life. What? What? Now, look, before anybody who've not heard of this before, I'm not talking about new agey woo-woo stuff here. You know, when you meet somebody in the grocery store, you say to yourself, I got a good vibe from them. I got a good vibe from them. I got a bad vibe from them. That's the energy that they're walking in. And it's the same for you. Whatever you're feeling, whatever you're going through, that's the energy you're putting out. So please don't hear when I want you to take the energy you're putting out and make it consistent with the dream. I want you to fill that subconscious with the dream so it'll match, so your energy will match the dream and not match the present circumstances. Okay? Please don't hear what I'm not saying. I am not saying make fake memories. We got enough crazy people out there operating on fake memories, all right? What I am saying, the subconscious mind motivates your conscious brain, and it's mainly a collection of emotions. We're not creating fake memories. We're creating emotions of the future we want, which then influences the conscious brain to believe that it's really possible. And the more you engage this memory emotion, the stronger these you can do it emotions get, and they begin to shrink down all the you're not good enough, the past emotions of when you failed in the past, when someone told you weren't good enough, when you got stabbed in the back and you felt foolish, when you made a poor decision and you felt all that shame. These feelings of shame and guilt stop us every time until we learn how to tap into this powerful ability to create new memory emotions that help you overcome.
Don't forget to like this episode, subscribe to the channel, and ask your question at ladiesofwealth.com.